I'm going to share with you how to place buttonholes in a buttonhole band with a self-facing. So I have a little swatch here, and this is my facing. This is a slipped stitch that I'm going to use as a turning column, so the facing goes to the inside nicely. Here is my buttonhole band, and then here is the body of my fabric. So you need to determine where you want to place, how many stitches will take up a buttonhole, and where you want to place waste yarn to place those buttonholes. You will be placing buttonholes in both the band and the facing. The facing will be turned to the inside. Those buttonholes will be grafted together. So I'm going to be placing my waste yarn. I have a piece of waste yarn here that's going to be the marker for the spots where my buttonholes are going to go. Since my buttonholes take up 3 stitches, I have 2 stitches on either side. The 3 center stitches are going to be where I'll place my waste yarn. So I'll work over to those 3 stitches. I'll take my waste yarn and I'll knit those 3. I'll leave about a 4-inch tail. Then I slip those stitches back to the left needle. Drop the waste yarn, pick up the project yarn again, and work those 3 stitches again. And then continue on. Tighten up those tails a little bit. Here's my stitch that I'm going to slip for the turning column. So I slip it purlwise. Then I continue on and knit 2 because I want the center 3 stitches to be my buttonhole. I'll drop the project yarn. I'll pick up the waste yarn again. I'm going to leave a little bit of a loop here so that it's not real tight. I'll work those 3 stitches. Drop that waste yarn again. At this point it can be cut to leave a 4-inch tail at some point. Knit the 2 stitches, the remainder 2 stitches for my band, and then I can continue on with the work in my body. So if we look at this, oh gosh, I forgot to knit these again. Don't forget to knit those. You slip these back to the left needle, work them again with the project yarn, and then continue on. And if you caught my error as I was doing it, good for you. Alright, so if we go back and look at it, here we see we have 3 stitches marked in the facing, 3 stitches marked in the band, and they're all worked over with the project yarn. Now I'll continue on and complete my band, and I'll show you how to graft these together. As you prepare to graft these buttonholes, you need to have the work upside down with the wrong side facing. So it's wrong side facing and it's upside down. In this way, the tails are going to be pointing away from you as they come out from the stitches. The first task is to get the tails pointing towards you. You need to thread them through some loops to get them to come towards you. So you want to look for, here's a frown, here's a smile, here's a frown, here's a frown, here's a smile, here's a frown. I refer to these bumps as frowns and smiles throughout the video, so you want to get familiar with those. But I'm going to be looking for the frown that's nearest the outside edge of the bottom of the waste yarn. Place my needle through that bump and through the one above it. And wrap the yarn around and pull it through. On the other tail, we want to look for the frown that's nearest the waste yarn closest to you. We're going to go, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the frown that's nearest the waste yarn that's closest to you. Here is a frown and the frown directly above it. Okay, so now we need to do the same thing with the yarn tails on the facing. So if I start on this side, here is the strand from the waste yarn. Here's the frown, and here's the frown directly above it. And I go to the other side. Here's the waste yarn. Here's the frown. And here's the frown directly above it. Okay. So now your tails are towards you. Before we go any further, I want to review the stitches that we are going to be grafting together. So if you look, here's the top of the waste yarn and the bottom of the waste yarn. These stitches between are going to be the ones that we are going to be grafting together. These stitches on the bottom here will be grafted to these stitches on the bottom here. These stitches on the top between the waste yarn will be grafted to these stitches on the top over here. Some of these are frowns, some of these are smiles. They might look a little bit different as we turn the work around, but a frown will look like a frown and a smile will look like a smile as it's relative to how you're looking at it. We'll be talking about that in a minute. So to get started, you have your yarn tails pulled towards you through the loops, and you fold this together with right sides together, and then you fold it again up like this, and you rotate it so that your yarn tails are now on the outside edges, and your turning row of your facing and band. Here's the band, here's the facing, here's your turning row. It's situated like that. Now if we look at these stitches, here are the stitches between the top of the waste yarn and the bottom of the waste yarn. Here are the stitches that we will be working with. Outside layer, inside layer. Here is the waste yarn from the band. These are the outside layer. These are the inside layer. So we're going to be working with the outside layer first. You take your yarn, either your project yarn or a contrasting color, and you place a crochet hook right where this yarn tail closest to you is coming out. Go over to the other piece and enter under the loop where the yarn tail is coming out. You leave about a 4-inch tail in your yarn and pull that through those loops. So I'm going to make this a little bit closer so that you can see a little bit better. We're going to move to the left, and we are going to graft the outermost stitches together. So I'll be going in this loop and this loop. They are right next door to each other. I'm moving to the left. So I go in the bottom loop and the very top loop, and I'm going to pull this all the way through. So I have one loop on my needle. I'm going to move to the left. I'm going to go in this bottom loop and this top loop. Wrap the yarn around, pull through all loops. Now the last one, because this is just a 3-stitch buttonhole, the last one is the loop where the yarn tail comes out of. So Here's the loop where the yarn tail comes out of, the one closest to me. And I want to find the loop where the yarn tail comes out of furthest away from me. Go under that. Okay. Pull through and pull through. Okay. Then you can pull this, elongate this and pull this tail all the way through. So that side is done. And you have little chains on where you pulled this, like a crochet chain. You take your crochet hook and you slip it between the layers here and you poke it up through this hole. And we're going to grab this yarn and we're going to bring it to the inside and out the other side. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now we're going to unfold and refold this piece so that we can get to the inner layer. So I'm just going to fold this back up, and here's what it looks like so far. And I want to get to the other side, so I'm going to refold this down. And I'm going to rotate it so that I'm again working from right to left. So here's my tail. I'll be working with this tail. And I'm going to do basically the same thing that we did on the other side. Only we don't have tails poking out here, but we're going to go in this loop here where this strand is coming out from the waist yarn. So that's our loop that we want there. And up here is our loop. You see how that strand is going through that loop? We're going to go up there. Pull that through. The next one that we want to choose is this one and the one that's kind of underneath this top layer, which is this one. Pull through all loops, find the next bump there, or loop, and the next one. You can see they're right between the waist yarn, these. Okay, the next one is here. So these are frowns that we're going through. We're going through a frown here, and we're going through a smile on the other side. And pull all the way through. Now we have one more, because this strand of yarn, this strand of waist yarn is coming and it's entering this loop here. So we want to go in that loop, go up to the top, find where the strand is going through the loop. You can see that it's coming in through here. So we're going to go through like that. Pull through everything, and we'll be done because there's no more waist yarn to look at. So we can pull this through, the tail through. Our other tail is under here. Snug it up a little bit, and you can tie this in a little knot to see to hold it for right now. And that's that side grafted. Now all we have to do is take out our waist yarn and see what happens. See if we did it right. You can kind of check and see in here, see if the stitches seem to be connected. You can kind of feel if they are. But here we go. Pull this waist yarn out. And if you happen to have caught it with your grafting yarn or something, you might use a small pair of sharp scissors to snip things apart. But this is coming out very well. Okay, so I can see that that bottom is grafted correctly. And then we'll remove the waist yarn on this side. And that bottom is grafted correctly. So there you go. There's a correctly grafted buttonhole of a band and a facing. So this is the facing. Now you'll go back and you can duplicate stitch these tails, or you can tie them in another little knot. Trim the ends fairly close and enclose them, and tack this down along this side here, tack the facing down, and there's your buttonhole. I hope that you found this video helpful, and I hope that you find an opportunity to use these really nice looking buttonholes.